Be seated. Thank you. First of all, my apologies for a little delay in starting our first meeting in this chamber. Right, members of the council, welcome home. I would like to welcome members, officers, and members of the public back to the council chamber for our first council meeting in here since 2020. So, better late than never. I'm sure you will agree with me that the repair and refurbishment works have been quite splendid and the chamber looks absolutely beautiful. Can I ask members and members of the public not to talk amongst themselves during the meeting, as this can be very distracting for those who are listening to the debate? Can I also ask anyone to ensure any mobile devices are switched to silent and do not cause a distraction during the meeting? I will remind everyone that the use of mobile devices for the taking or making of phone calls is not permitted in the meeting. I would also remind members that where they are able to, they are required to stand when addressing the council meeting. When members are invited to speak, please stand up and press the button on the microphone in front of you before you start to speak. And remember to press the button down when you have finished speaking. While some members may not need the amplification to be able to hear or be heard in the room, the viewers at home will not be able to hear. We would ask you to speak clearly and not hold papers or anything else between yourself and the microphone when speaking. We are not expecting a fire alarm tonight, but if one should occur, please follow officers down the stairs out of the front of the town hall to the assembly point. The meeting is being streamed, and I would like to take the opportunity to welcome those watching on the council's YouTube channel. Members, let us all remember to treat members of the public, elected members and officers with respect throughout the meeting, as set out in the Code of Conduct for members. Finally, before we start our meeting, on behalf of members and officers of the council, I would like to extend our sincere condolences to Councillors Karen Ingham and Councillor Shah Hussain on their recent bereavements. Right. Item 1 on the agenda, minutes of the last meeting of the council held on 6th December. I will move those minutes. Mr. Deputy Mayor, will you second those minutes?
I second those minutes, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Mr. Mayor, I have a question on the minutes. If it relates to page 9, and it relates to the motion that was so adequately put to the meeting by Councillor Lubna-Corn. Could I ask, did the letter go to the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition? And have we had a response from either the Prime Minister or the Opposition Leader? And could I ask that all members of this Council get a copy of the responses that we got from the Prime Minister and from the Leader of the Opposition?
Right. Council Leader, Councillor Anwar, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can confirm that the letters were sent to both the Prime Minister and to the Leader of the Opposition. I did actually check my in-tray this morning, and to date, nothing has been received from either of them. But what I will ensure, as requested, is that the copy of the letters that did go out are shared with members. Thank you.
Right. Right, as you said, the minutes are approved. Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda, declaration of interest. With regard to agenda item 5C, fees and charges tariff 2024-25. I can confirm that a dispensation has been granted to allow all members to participate in and vote on this item in respect of the garden waste collection charges and contract parking charges. Without such a dispensation, business would be impeded due to the number of members affected. Are there any other declaration of interest? No. Yeah, no interest. Okay. Item 3 on the agenda, Mayor's communications. I would remind members that they are invited to attend the annual Holocaust Memorial Service at 12 noon on Sunday, 28th January in the Peace Garden, Croft Street, Burnley. Item 4 on the agenda, public question times. I think we have got Mrs. O'Donnell is in attendance this evening to present to full council a petition in respect of the removal of telegraph broadband poles on the Lower Manor Lane, Hillwood Drive, Close, Lower Mead Drive, and Goswood Close Estate. Mrs. O'Donnell, please come forward to the public microphone. You have up to 5 minutes to speak.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and fellow members of the council. I rise to present a petition signed by the residents of the Lower Manor Lane estate regarding the installation of telecommunication telegraph poles. As outlined, the estate comprises of Goswood Close, Lower Mead, Hillwood Drive and Lower Manor Lane. Many of the residents in and around the northwest have found telegraph poles erected close to their homes, outside their front gates, in the middle of pavement, without any permission or advance notice. With no requirement for local consultation, there is no opportunity for residents to have their say. This petition reflects the strength of their feeling in Burnley and across the county. This situation needs to change. Just a little bit of background in terms of what the estate comprises of. Lower Manor Lane is a semi-rural estate on the outskirts of Burnley near Fence and Hyam. All the current broadband infrastructure is underground. The estate benefits from a range of broadband already provided by Virgin, BT, TalkTalk, Vodafone, etc. BRSK, the internet provider, has commenced installation of poles on this estate without prior consultation or formal notice, as outlined in their permit application. The residents have got together and 342 signatures have been obtained, both manually and via change.org. Approximately there's 265 properties on that estate. The petition clearly evidenced that no proper consultation had been taken place and that there's a strong opposal to the telegraph poles. We were also notified that BRSK did not follow their proposed plans, as the poles have been erected outside other properties which didn't align to their plan. Limited sign-up has now taken place with BRSK, with them predominantly quoting numbers that align to Bardon Lane, which is separate to our estate. We've sought various support from councillors, and we've had support from Mohammed Hanif, Councillor Fiona Wild, Councillor Usman Arif, and various other councillors. We've also had 2 press articles in the Evening Telegraph and Burnley Express. The residents would welcome the support of the council to remove the poles and for no further poles to be erected to maintain the aesthetics of the estate, which has been pole-free since the building in the 1970s. We would like consultation to be made mandatory for any future infrastructure imposed onto the estate. And we'd appreciate if you could lobby Parliament and support Diana Johnson's MP private bill making consultation mandatory. The estate is across Pendle and Burnley Council, so Pendle have kindly already written to BRSK asking them to remove the poles. I am aware that the local councils are limited in terms of what they can do due to the legislative changes. However, if the council wishes to support ourselves and again write to BRSK and ask them to remove the poles. I ask that they review Article 1 of the Human Rights Act 1998 for the protection of property. The protection of property gives every person the right to peaceful enjoyment of their possessions. This imposes an obligation on the state not to interfere with the peaceful enjoyment of the property. This right also imposes an obligation on the government to take the necessary and reasonable steps to protect property. Any interference with this right must be subject to conditions provided by law and must achieve a fair balance between the general public interest and the protection of an individual's property right. I'd like to just show a picture of one of the residents and what they can see from both their living room and from their bedroom. Again, we would welcome the council support. In particular, there's a number of residents where clearly the estates are causing health conditions as a result, because some of the members of the residents are now suffering panic attacks because that's all they see when they wake up in the morning and when they go to bed at night. So we would be very grateful if you could write to BRSK on our behalf. Do you have any questions?
Right, please, if you
Thank you very
finish
much.
here, return
Yeah.
to your seat.
Thank you very much for your support.
Yeah, I'm going to go through again. Yeah, just leave it with the officer here. Thank you. Thank you. In accordance with the Council's petition scheme, as there are fewer than 1,500 signatures, this petition will not be debated by Councillor this evening. However, it will be forwarded to the appropriate team within the Council who will respond to you within 5 working days to set out the powers available to the Council or any actions that have been taken or are planned. Thank you for taking the time to come to present your petition this evening. You may now leave if you wish, or you would be very welcome to stay and listen to some or all of the remaining meeting. We have got another speaker, Dale Ferrier. Councillor Dale is a councillor's conduct. So may I ask Dale Ferrier to come to the speaker.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, this brings back a lot of memories when I was in here.
You have got 5 minutes to speak.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Thank you. I bet we're all glad to be, like I said, back home and made a lovely job of the ceiling, but that's not what I'm here for anyway. So I've come here to speak on matters arising in the last meeting, more specifically the Gaza motion. Now, I'm not making a contribution to that because as far as I'm concerned, that's been to council and gone through. No, what the thing I want to raise is rather what was contained within the walls, I suppose, next door, because now we've moved in here. Now, some of my colleagues have mentioned about the atmosphere during that particular debate being quite tense and some alarming to some kinds of. Now I thought, well, I'll go and see for myself. So I went to the YouTube channel, had a look, and watched the motion for myself. Now, although the speeches are very, very impassioned, I saw no real issue with the conduct of councillors. But the last sort of minute or two of that motion debate I want to raise as a little reminder. Now, before I proceed, I want to make it absolutely clear it's not aimed at any particular councillor at all. It is a message for every single one of you. Made quite nicely, of course, I hope. I hope you receive it nicely. Towards the end, Councillor Barton made a contribution to the debate, which is quite a right to do so. Whether she agreed or not, it's quite a right. When she had finished, Councillor finished her contribution, Councillor Khan, who presented the motion, again, quite a right to reply to the contributions, made a right to reply, but during that reply, she said at one point, in referring to Councillor Barton's contribution, Maybe the real reason is that blood of a certain kind is more important. Now, of course, I cannot speak of her true intentions behind that. But my alarm to that is it can be interpreted in quite the wrong way. Now, of course, I don't know Councillor Barton personally, but I assume, and I hope I'm right, that she is a fair, level-headed, reasonable, kind-hearted person. At least I hope so. And I go off that assumption. Now, that's the first part. Now, during the voting was taking place, and as we know, some councillors abstained from that vote. And I heard audibly on the recording words of shame. And according to some of my colleagues, apparently the word scum was said. Now, I can't say whether that was councillors saying that or the large number of visitors who were present in that chamber, in that room at the time. I can't say. But like I said, all this is a reminder of, I'm not having a go, all it is a reminder of is that as councillors, we must try and maintain a high standard to each other, of respecting each other. Even if we profoundly disagree with each other on certain issues, we must always maintain that level of respect and that high standard. I remember, well, I don't remember, I was far too young, but some of you, will remember many years ago, back in them dark days in Burnley in 2001, when the riots were going on, all that hatred and things. Now, Burnley took a very long time to recover from that. And a part of that work was done in this very chamber, with councillors setting that higher standard to each other to show that we're above all that. So, all this is, and I'm not looking for excuses if there's any, or an explanation, not even an apology at all. All I'm asking is that councillors just reflect on themselves now and then and think, we always try and work to better ourselves. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect, of course not. I have my own faults, and that's for me to reflect upon. But, like I say, all I want is the councillors to reflect on how they treat each other, so we all work together for the betterment of the town and the betterment of each other. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Farrier. You can go back to your seat. Are you done? Let him sit down. Right, Councillor Anwar, will you respond to Mr. Farrier's?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, just to thank Mr. Ferrier for obviously raising that issue, and what we will do is obviously have a look at, see if any of the issues around code of conduct have any members have strayed away from that. But I think it is obviously the debate that we had with what's going on in Gaza, in Palestine, in Israel, as we've seen that unfolding before our eyes. And we're seeing it in real time. So obviously, you know, sometimes you will see that debate, you will see that emotion. And I'm sure, and this is right across the board, any member who spoke on that night was not to cause offence to any other person in this chamber or in the room at the time, but it is to raise the issue of the fact that innocent people right across the board are losing their lives, and that's what needs to be remembered. But in also adding to that, I think it's also a reminder for us as members that we do have a certain standard that we do need to uphold, and I'm sure former Councillor Ferrier will recognise that actually over the past 2 or 3 years, one of the things that we have done in this council is actually move towards actually having more respect for one another and being able to debate without making things personal, and that is something that hopefully that we can continue to do. But as I said, if there are any issues that have arisen with regards to any member breaking the code of conduct, then we will look into that, and that will be dealt with by the relevant committee. But thank you for raising that. Thank you.
Any member on this issue want to say anything? Thank you, everyone here. Item 5, decision. Yeah, item for decision. We have a number of decision items before us this evening under agenda item 5. Can I point out to members that items for decision by council are treated as motions. Once proposals has been moved and seconded, members may speak once and for a maximum of 5 minutes. Members may then only speak again on an amendment Where appropriate, executive minute extracts have been published as an agenda supplement with the recommendations to council highlighted in bold. Item 5A, Lancashire Combined Authority and Devolution Proposal. Councillor Anwar, will you propose a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I will move a motion, but in doing so, I just want to say a few words. I think, obviously, every single member in the room is aware that a deal has been proposed between the upper tiers, Blackburn, Blackpool and Lancashire County Council. And at the last full council, one of the things that we did as a council, unanimously, we agreed that we would defer a consultation response on that, because although we will have our own personal views as politicians and as elected representatives, the fact is that it's not just our view, it's also the view of our residents, our businesses, local stakeholders. We need to listen to what they've got to say as well. And so for the past few weeks, we've had the opportunity, one, to take part in the consultation, but also to listen to what residents, local businesses, and our key stakeholders have got to say. I've attended a number of consultation meetings with members of the public, also with LCC at the library, where a number of people were in attendance. And the key message that's coming out is that, and I think it's important to reiterate that I think we're all in agreement in terms of the deal itself. We're not happy with what the deal is, what is included within the deal. But what we have to be clear about is that it's not the fact that, you know, what's being proposed would be the first step towards further deals in the future. And it's important that we recognise that. What businesses have come back and told us, and other members might come in and back up what I'm saying, is that businesses are saying that currently what happens is when Lancashire or Lancashire leaders are going to government and asking for funds, what happens is they're in competition against Manchester, Liverpool, West Yorkshire, who have a single voice. But Lancashire, because we don't have a single voice fighting for Lancashire, what ends up happening is Lancashire misses out. And as a result, Burnley businesses, Lancashire businesses miss out. And even our partners, our stakeholders, when they apply for funds or grant funding or any sort of support from government or any partnership, they miss out as well. And so that's the message coming back. And so what I would like to propose as part of it, and the reasons for what I would like to move is that we support the deal, okay, setting aside our own personal differences on what we believe around that. But what we need to do is the reasons that we're giving for supporting that deal is that we need to get onto this first steps of the journey towards devolution. Every single one of us in this room, I believe, wants localised powers. We want more power for us here locally. We all support a devolution deal for Lancashire. And what we have to do as part of that is that also that one of the things that we would request as part of the consultation response to the upper tiers into Lancashire is that currently doesn't give voting rights for district leaders or to give them constituent membership of the board. What we would ask is that that is something that is within the powers that those constituent members have, and they afford voting rights to districts so that we can have a true say in what is being included in any future funding or any resource that might be coming to Lancashire. And what I think is really important is that all Lancashire leaders need to get on board with this and support this, because if we're not part of it, as our businesses and some residents and others have pointed out, is that we will get further left behind. And we're already being left behind the likes of Manchester, Liverpool and Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, and we don't want to get left even further behind. I move that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Anwar. Councillor Lishman, will you... Sorry.
Just for clarity, Councillor Anwar, are you proposing to move motion 2A without any amendments and with 3 reasons which I've gathered, because these haven't been shared with us beforehand? with the three reasons.
Yeah,
you said. Is that what, is
yeah.
that what
So I'm
you're
moving
proposing?
without amendments and the reasons given, as well as the
So it's without amendments,
yeah,
because I'm
with
just
the-
trying to sort of link
yeah.
it in with that so that members are clear in terms
So
of what's
reasons
being-
recorded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lishman, will you second that motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I second that motion. I reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. Any member on this issue? Councillor Husker? Councillor Martin?
Yeah, I agree with Anwar. We do need to be moving forward, but I also think this town, and surrounding Padiham, Burnley, Hapton, we should all have a better say. And I want to see this motion go forward to move the town forward, but I don't want to be controlled with another area. I want Burnley, Padiham, Hapton to have their own say, and I think that's only fair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think obviously Councillor Anwar's about turn on everything he's been saying for the last 6 months in terms of the deal. It's taken probably quite a few of us by surprise tonight, and I'm just going to reflect on one or two of the things he said and use his own words over the last few months in terms of what he's actually said about this deal that has suddenly miraculously changed in these perhaps last few hours, last few days, who knows. First of all, we all support, I think, in this chamber, the need for a devolution deal. I certainly have since 2014, but it has to be the right sort of deal, the deal that retains the influence of this town and gives it a strong voice in any deal. And the deal on the table is certainly not it. In terms of what Councillor Anwar has said in the past, and I've always agreed with him in many, on all of these, there was an absence of district leaders in the deal development. That was unhelpful. It was undemocratic. The importance of voting rights to district councils is absolutely sacrosanct. Falls short of representing Burnley's ambitions and addressing our unique challenges. I'm not sure that was addressed tonight in terms of how this deal would do that. The removal of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, the absence of voting rights for districts, and the transfer of other functions from districts does not align with the principles of any genuine devolution deal. Burnley's social and economic needs are not the same as those facing other parts of the county. Council encourages that there needs to be further dialogue and negotiation on this deal, and the proposed terms are underwhelming. Hardly a massive endorsement of the deal that he's now saying that we as a council should put our name to. I also refer him to his letter that he signed along with a number of other Lancashire leaders that represented 900,000 of Lancashire's residents when he went to Jacob Young on the 24th of November. Within it, he says, our residents risk being ill-served by the current proposals, and the current deal does not articulate any clear benefits for the county and conversely risks creating disunity, sowing division and breaking up the Red Rose County. Could not have been clearer, unlike this evening. And to those who say that we'll be left behind if we don't jump on the bus now, well, it's okay jumping on the bus, but it has to be going in the right direction at the right speed for everybody. It's no good if it's going in the wrong direction, which is this is. If we do this, it condemns Burnley and Lancashire to always being left behind, because this is a second division deal. Anybody who thinks this is catching Manchester and Liverpool up is absolutely deluded, because they're on a different tier of devolution to what we are. This condemns Lancashire to the second division, always in catch-up, always behind. That's not where we want to be. This town has always prided itself on striving to be in the top league, the top division. This condemns us to the second division. We'll be opposing the motion that the leader put forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lishman, if you want to respond to... Not yet. No, I thought, this is two of them. Just carry on. Okay, Councillor Cunliffe, then. Yeah, any member, yeah. No, yeah. This one works. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I think there's quite a few people that do want to speak, Mayor, so it'd be good to give everyone a voice. Yeah, like everyone else, I'm in favour of devolution, and ideally for me, devolution should go to where settlements are, should go to where towns and villages are, where people live and where people should make decisions about their own future. Unfortunately, that's not quite what's on the table here. What's on the table is part of what's always been the agenda since sort of 1972, 1974, when this Borough Council was formed, that bigger is seemingly always better for those in the centre when they do devolve power. And I don't actually think this is a devolution deal, it's more a decentralisation deal. In that it's not devolving down, 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 it's just going down to one level, which is a big level in Lancashire. Now, unfortunately, that's the only deal that is on the table. And although it's not an ideal deal, there are sort of issues that I want to put forward in how, what I would say, if we do support this, this is how it should be corrected. I do believe that there should be sort of, if there is going to be a district voice of the CCA, then they should be constituted. They shouldn't be just voice members. There should be 2 or if not more voting members from the districts on the CCA. That's not what's on there at the moment. It's just 2 district voices alongside the 4 voting voices, 2 from Lancashire, 1 from Blackburn and 1 from Blackpool. So there's a massive democratic deficit. So it does feel like this is being done to us, not being done with us, and I think that's what should go on. If we are supporting this, it should go on that this should be done with us and should give us voices through the districts onto there, ideally 10 voices, 10 district voices onto the voices at that level. I also think that, secondly, that when we do look at the economic sort of windfalls from this, there should be clear safeguards put in measures so that any funds that are received through the CCA should be proportionally distributed to boroughs and districts in terms of their need. And that doesn't seem to be the case, so I'd like to put that forward as, if we are supporting it, that should go on record. I also make this sort of decision in supporting a motion with those caveats that, and this is what I'll be putting as a dual hatted as a Lancashire County Council when we do sit and vote on this. I'm saying we've asked the Chief Exec to put these voices forward if we do vote this through. And this is what I'll be putting through as amendments to then the motion, amendments to the motion that goes in front of Lancashire County Council. But I also make this sort of decision with a strong belief that politics is about people, and that as elected members, we will work with the people of the CCA authority, because it's inevitable that it's going to go through, because the majority is already there on Lancashire. So I think we've got to believe that it is about people, and if us as elected members put strong enough voices forward from our constituents, from our wards and from Burnley Council, we can punch above our weights within the CCA, even though it's not an ideal deal, in the hope that there will be a stronger deal further down the road, because this would be a first step. And I think this is a voice that's coming from businesses. I, again, attended quite a few different meetings, and I've spoke to various businesses in my role and the exec as well. I've met loads of businesses over the last few weeks, and I'm always asking this question. And largely, they're in support of a deal that's going to bring more money into Lancashire, which I support. But again, there's always caveats with their voices as well. Should it be with a mayor? We might get more money.
Councillor Connolly, you are in the last minute.
So, yeah, I am supporting this, but with those caveats, which I hope the Chief Exec will put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGowan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do find it quite ironic that I've heard from Councillor Townsend about this deal, because back in 2018, I was sat up in the gallery like these people up here listening to a potential devolution deal that was being proposed by Labour at the time to allow this council to be controlled from Blackburn in a unitary authority. Now that can be denied, but it's all on record. The simple fact of the matter is with this, with this devolution deal is the boroughs all across Lancashire had an opportunity to be involved in creating a devolution deal which is going to see power and money come from London to Lancashire in one form or another. And the form that we are now voting on tonight doesn't involve the districts per se, it's all the upper authorities, the three upper tier local authorities within Lancashire, LCC, Blackpool and Blackburn. And what it means is that money will come into Lancashire. So when we're talking about, oh, but Burnley's going to be left out, ultimately all that's happening is the way I see it is a committee is being formed essentially. Now they don't call it a committee, but from LCC, from the two other unitary authorities in Lancashire, they will send representatives to a new body who will have the power and money that currently sits in Whitehall in London. Now, for those who say that they want to see more power come in locally, more money come in locally, then that's the argument, right? Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. I wouldn't argue it's perfect, and I agree with a number of things that Councillor Anwar said and Councillor Cunliffe, what they've said. But and I will be supporting it tonight. And the reason why I'm supporting it is because it doesn't actually take anything away from this district council. We still have all the same powers. Councillor Townsend speaks about the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. As far as I'm aware, we already work in conjunction with LCC and other boroughs across anyway. So that one's a little bit of a red herring. And then when it comes to what's actually going in the powers of this new authority, it's three areas. It's transport, it's transport, it's skills, and it's employment. Now, the biggest thing that I think is needed transport-wise right now, that people speak to me all the time about, is westward bound slip road where Burnley College is. Now, the thing is, this council is never going to have the money to sort that out. Now, and we could hopefully rely on civil servants down in Whitehall to give us the money to do it. Or we could get behind a devolution deal which sees that power and money go to Lancashire Combined Authority and then use the influence that we have as councillors to actually put pressure on that new authority to do things like that. Now, I'm not saying that that's 100% what's going to happen, but it just shows the opportunities that do exist. And I think that people are forgetting that and getting tied up in, frankly, what people aren't interested in, which is local government structures. People aren't interested in that when I speak to them on the doorstep. They're interested in whether it's gridlocked around Burnley College at 5 p.m. on an evening, or whether they're actually getting the bins emptied. Them are what people say to me. And like I say, I was sat up in that gallery in 2018 before I became a councillor. I didn't want to see powers transferred to Blackburn and under the unitary authority that Labour were proposing at the time. But I have no issue with this because this council keeps all the powers it currently has. LCC keep the powers they have, but as I say, it's essentially a committee that's being formed with members of LCC and the two unitaries and district members who, granted, don't have a vote, just getting more powers and money that is already happening now, only in Whitehall in London. And that's why I'll be supporting it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor. I've got Councillor White, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Issue. Councillor White, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think virtually everybody wants some devolution, excuse me. I've got some concerns that, there's a lot of holes in the document that's being covered. But there's some things that I mentioned in the last council meeting as well. It said, on page 25, this was to the council meetings in the last council meeting. It says, this is the Lancashire devolution deal. It says, subject to ratification of deal of all partners and the statutory requirements referred to in the document, including the consent of all councils affected and parliamentary approval of the secondary legislation, implementing the provisions of that deal. Then it's got stamps from the housing, from the Department for Levelling Up, Lancashire County Council, Blackpool Council, and Blackburn and Darwin. But it says there the consent of all councils. My understanding is one council's already rejected it. I don't know what that puts. I've heard people say we don't have a say in it. But if one, it says on there, all councils affected. That's what it says on here. I'd just like some clarification on that, because otherwise there's no point agreeing to something that's already going to be rejected by one council. The other thing was on page 111, said that there was going to be an online survey asking residents for their comments and thoughts. I don't know if there's any residents because I've not seen any feedback of what's being said, because the biggest problem is, as councillors or whatever it may be, is we live in the bubble, but it's where we live or whatever, and people say, yeah, I spoke to this person, that person, but do we speak to people outside the bubble? And if we do, is what response do we get? Where I stand on this, I like more devolution and I like more power, but this just seems to be a mess. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lishman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I shall be brief. I think Councillor Anwar has been an example to us all. There are bits that we don't like. There are lots of it that I don't like. But I do realise that this at the moment is all that is on the table. I want to be there for my borough, having a say in what goes on. Even if I haven't got a vote, I will at least be able to air my views and be able to say what I think. And we've listened to our residents. And good on you, Councillor Anwar, for going ahead, listening to residents, listening to businesses, and coming back and saying, yes, we will support it. We don't necessarily like it in detail, but if we are at the table, or at least sitting behind the table, we've got the opportunity to start influencing what goes on. If we just sit there and say we don't like it, and we're not joining till it's what we like, then we will never have a say. So yes, I support it.
Councillor Anwar, you're right to reply.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I just want to reiterate the point that was made by Councillor McGowan with regards to currently what Councillor Townsend is posting on Facebook and things around. We don't want decisions for Burnley to be made in Blackburn. But it was in 2018 when he wrote to the Secretary of State and put his name to a letter that requested for a unitary council for East Lancashire to be run from Blackburn Town Hall. And now he's saying that he doesn't want a council or Blackburn making decisions on our behalf. So it seems some people can change their mind, others can't, right? The other thing I just want to point out is that with the unitary council for East Lancashire, what that would have created is actually one of the poorest councils in the country because of the issues that we have in East Lancashire, whether that be to do with education, transport, adult social care, you name it. On all of those, we would be affected poorly and we would struggle as a unitary council. There is still some desire within some of the Lancashire leaders to go down that road, but that's not something that we want because I don't want to see local government reorganisation. I want to keep Burnley Council and we don't want to lose those functions. It's important that we recognise that. Lancashire have been trying to do a deal for a great number of years, and we've never got to this point because Lancashire leaders have never been able to agree. And the reason they've never been able to agree is because they've always wanted, some have wanted a mayoral combined authority, some wanted a mayor with unitaries. They've never been able to agree the governance process. This is the first time we've got to a stage where at least we might be able to get a deal over the line. And it's because they all want to be mayor. That's what they want. And Councillor Lishman has just made a very, very valid point, is that we need to be there. Whether we need to have a say. We know how these things work. Things will come to scrutiny. We'll get to have a say in it and debate. But our businesses are telling us that they need us to be there for us and to have a say. At the last Lancashire leaders, I was the only Lancashire leader in the room because the others decided they didn't want to be there because it wasn't their deal. They weren't going to partake in that. Well, I've been elected to represent and be a voice for the people of Burnley, but also on behalf of all of you to actually be a voice in Lancashire leaders. So I'm not going to spit my dummy out and say, well, I'm not going because it's not my deal. I'm going to be a part of those conversations and fight and get the best that I possibly can for the residents of Burnley and Papadium. And that's what we're there for. We're talking about, this is a deal that's, in comparison to Manchester and Liverpool, this is, it's not a great deal in terms of that. But Manchester and Liverpool didn't start with the deal they have now. Manchester and Liverpool started with a similar, they got onto that first step of getting to the table and then actually working towards better deals. Manchester currently are on their 7th deal. And the most important thing is that Councillor Townsend wants to say that, you know, I've changed my mind and I've done this and I've done that. I'll tell you the honest truth of it is leadership is not about posting things on Facebook and ranting and raving. Leadership is about listening. And that's what we've done. We've actually listened to residents. We've listened to our businesses who are unanimously telling us that they want some form of deal so that Lancashire gets a single voice. And we will be at that table whether other districts decide not to be or not. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, now we will go for the vote here. All
Point of order,
those in
Mr. Mayor.
favour, please show.
Point of
Sorry,
order.
sorry.
I'd just like to know what we're voting on, because obviously option A, and then it was said that there were caveats to the option A in terms of what the consultation response would be. Can I just ask, are those written down as some kind of motion or whatever? Because at the moment, I would like to see, before anybody sends a consultation in, it needs to be presented round this council chamber. Nobody's seen what's going to be written down yet. So can I just be clear on what we're voting on?
Thank you, Councillor.
Officers will arrange for that, yeah. I think it's a fair point. Yes, before you vote. Oh, yeah, before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Read it out before the vote.
Yeah, yeah, good point. You're going to read out. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
can I just ask? And obviously, there's
Sorry,
a lot,
be quiet, please.
can I just ask, just from a procedural point of view, what is happening now? There was a motion proposed by Councillor Anwar. I forgot what the question was that the Chief Exec asked. Was it with or without amendment? Is this an amendment to the motion, or is it the motion?
What was asked, I picked up from the debate, and sorry, Councillor Anwar, do you want to clarify what you would say?
Yeah, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. These are not amendments. These are moving the motion to support the proposals and the reasons outlined. Thank you. Reasons to be recorded.
So are you suggesting that, so it's item, I'll read it out once I've managed to sort of comprehend it, but what you're suggesting is you're moving 2A without amendments and the reasons to be recorded as part of the consultation response. Is that right? Yeah.
Right. Councillor Townsend, are you happy with that? Yeah. Right. So, are you going to read out something?
I'm just.
Do you want me to second that, Mr. Mayor?
No, it's been.
It's okay.
No, no, I just going. Recorded out. Yeah, quiet, please.
Mr. Mayor, I've just been asked to consider the matter that's under discussion, and I agree that it is appropriate to give reasons for the decision and to give reasons for the particular proposal which is being moved and seconded. It always makes a decision less open to challenge if you give substantial reasons for the decision. So I do think that's an appropriate course of action in this particular case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys say something. Yes. Right. I'll tell you 1 second. Just take your time. So what about highlighting? Yeah. It's just the council leader has moved motion to a without. Right, yeah. Please, I'm going to read something. Please be quiet, please, yeah. It's a move motion to a bracket without amendment to support the proposal for the following reasons. Supported by businesses, need to get on the first step of the journey, work toward greater local engagement. Third one, if we aren't part of it, we will be left further behind. Oh, wow. So, is it this one? Yeah? Right. So that would be the consultation response, which will be voted on. Right. Yeah. So that is the consultation report. So that will be the consultation response, which the mayor has read out, which will be put to the vote next. Right. Looks like it's a challenge for officers this evening. Something to come up. Anyway, now we will go to the vote here. I hope you all understand what we are voting for. So all those in favor, please show. Yeah, right. All those against, please show. Right. Any abstentions? Okay, all right. Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you so much. Right. Item 5B, Revenue Monitoring Report 2023-24 Q2. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you move the reports? Recommendations as outlined in Executive Minute 59.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, move the report and the recommendations.
Councillor Anwar, will you second those recommendations?
I second those recommendations, Mr. Mayor.
Any member? All those in favor, please show. Yeah. All those against, please show. No. Any abstentions? Okay. This item is carried. Thank you. Next. Item 5C, Capital Monitoring Report 2023-24, Quarter 1. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you move the report's recommendations as outlined in Executive Minutes 60?
Move the report and the recommendations, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Anwar, will you second those recommendations?
I second the recommendations, Mr. Mayor.
Any member? No. All those in favor, please show. All those against, please show. Any abstentions, please show. Oh, thank you. This item is carried. Item 5D, Fees and Charges Tariff 2024-25. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you move the report's recommendations as outlined in the Executive Minute 61?
Mr. Mayor, yes, I'll move those recommendations. I do have a few words to say. Is it appropriate that I say those now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by thanking the previous administration for their careful stewardship of the council's finances along with our finance department that has got us to this stage. And I'd also say that I'd remind councillors that the first time we had a look at the general increase of 3% in fees and charges was at the council in September as part of the Revenue Budget 24-27 update, and that was by the previous administration. The current level of inflation, and I've checked twice today because I feel it changes so frequently that we have to keep an eye on it, is currently at 4.2%. That was released by the Office of National Statistics on the 17th of January, 1 week ago. It follows that the proposals before you tonight are below that level of inflation. As part of the normal due diligence that our officers in the finance department have done, they've looked at surrounding local authorities and their intentions. Although, of course, Burnley is unique, and I tell everybody that, it's useful to know and to see what others have done and what others intend to do. Chorley are looking at a 6.7% increase. Ribble Valley, 4% increase. Rossendale, 5 to 10, varying it over various things. South Ribble, 6.7%, and Wyre, 4%. And those are the ones we know so far. All the fees and the charges that are before you tonight are those recommended by the relevant head of service or the director and are based on the income that they feel is achievable without significantly reducing demand. If there is a good business case being presented, then there might be a recommendation to increase more than 3%. I would also remind members that it's recommended that a number of fees and charges be frozen, and those are shown in the report. For example, parking charges are remaining the same. Mention's been made of the potential impact of the cost of bulky items removed by the council going up by 3%. I've certainly seen that on Facebook. I'm not going to mention any names. I'll remind members that we had set aside £12,000 to provide support in this area to residents that are facing hardship and need support. Officers are aware of the adverse effects of the new legislation on sofas, chairs and soft furnishings. So there is an ability to access that funding to get bulky waste removed, and it's managed via Street Scene, Housing, Burnley Together, Calico, and notifying councillors who become aware of residents' needs. There is a face-to-face assessment and various additional support can then be offered. So it's targeted to those most in need, rather than a blanket, don't take the 3%. If we did a blanket reduction of 3% in this area, it's unlikely to stop dumping, certainly the dumping that I see in the rural areas of my ward. And I hope members will take note of my previous comments about assisting residents. In addition, the likely effect of a blanket reduction within that money being found elsewhere could well mean that the poorer residents are subsidising those who can afford the new levels of charging. This modest below inflation increase in fees and charges will result in approximately £104 additional income in 24-25 and will help Burnley Council balance its books and continue to deliver for our residents. In passing, I also note the acceptance and success of my innovation some years ago of changing when we did the fees and charges decisions. We used to do them at the same time as we did the budget, and often they slipped through without a proper discussion. Whereas now, dealing it as a separate item makes sure that we have a proper discussion in isolation about fees and charges. Many councils across this country are facing serious financial difficulties, and an increasing number are contemplating bankruptcy. In Burnley, thanks to the good stewardship of officers and members, we continue to perform well. I hope and intend to bring some modest growth items to the next council meeting when we set the budget. Mr. Mayor, I propose the recommendations set before council.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councillor.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Anwar, will you second that report, please?
I second the report, Mr. Mayor, and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. Any member? Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have here fees and charges going back to 2017, which is the furthest data I can get off the council's website. But it brought something to my attention that I wanted to raise here in full council, and it involves football provision. So you'll all remember that at the last meeting, I spoke about 3G pitches, or the lack of in Padiham, and how we need to put something in place. But this is about the current football pitches, because whether it's at Fennyfold, Townley, Hapton, or the Prairie, fees are charged for using these pitches. And the report tonight proposes increasing those fees on all 8 pitches in the borough, bar one, the one at Bardin. Now, looking back through these records, I can see that in 2017, about £2,500 was charged throughout the year to use that pitch. In 2018, that was not charged in lieu of cleaning and management. And from 2019 onwards, it's been zero until now. So can the council leader or the exec member just explain who made this agreement to completely waive the fees for this one pitch, and whether since 2019 the council has undertaken any basic maintenance there, like seeding the pitch? I ask as it just seems odd to me that one pitch would be exempt from these fees, because I think of teams like in Hapton and in Padiham who may want to potentially take up an offer like this too. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to thank Councillor Ishman for those words of thanks to previous administrations. And I think, you know, we all accept that there's been joint administrations and things like that in the past, and there's been a lot of working together that has kept this council on a sound path towards sound finances. And certainly nothing I'm going to say now is going to change that. Strong believer in sound finances. We've had some tough times with really harsh government settlements for many years, but we've managed to keep this council afloat and delivering good services. And overall, and again, Councillor Ishman is quite right, that this first came to council, I think in September, where a general overall increase of 3% was a key assumption within the MTF of that time. And we understand the challenges going forward in terms of extra money, and that's just come to light today, where the government has had to delve into its pockets again to come out with some extra money because they realise that they're sending so many councils to the wall. The general increase of 3% is below inflation, and that's good. And Councillor Richmond has read out what other councils may or may not be doing as they go through this process. But there are some tweaks that the Labour group would like to the fees and charges that are basically in front of us today. Really, and in terms of those tweaks, they are about setting the tone and drive that we have as a council for a cleaner borough, and to ensure that we're recovering all our costs for HMO administration and reflecting the impact that HMOs have on our neighbourhoods. So at this point, I do want to move an amendment. Officers do have a copy of that amendment. Do you want me to run through it now? It's probably better if we second it, probably first, and before it's distributed. I move.
Yeah,
I'll move it.
For the benefit of the people who are watching on YouTube, if you could read it out, that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I'm going to move is, one, that an exception to be applied to the 3% general charges increase for bulky household collections, freezing the charge at the 23-24 level, reduction in the proposed increase of commercial waste bin lift charges from 5% down to 3%. Reduction in the proposed increase in commercial pest control services from 11.6% down to 3%. Set the side waste fixed penalty notice charge at £100 until a review has been completed into replacing with community penalty notices and fly tipping FPNs. And HMO licence charges, increase the charge on applying for a HMO licence from the proposed £534.57 to £586.50, and increase the charge on a HMO licence being granted from the proposed £388.31 to £420.35. And C, at the next review of selective licensing fees, the executive to also consider increasing the discount given on HMO licences for landlords who are registered with the council as good landlords from 30% to 40%, therefore rewarding those who do the right thing. I so move. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there any second? Right, Councillor. Right,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second that.
right, okay. Any member for amendments? Yeah. Any member on amendments? Councillor, I can't read your name. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for that, Councillor Townsend, and thanks for circulating this piece of paper to me, officers. I've just got to ask a question, Councillor Townsend, and to the officers as well. This reduction in the proposed increase in commercial pest control services from 11.6 to 3%, is this for rat control? Are we talking about things like that? Or is for, so you're proposing that we actually reduce the increase for rat control when just literally a couple of months ago we had local businesses and local residents in this town hall saying that we have got a rat problem in Burnley, but we want to reduce the pest control increase. Is that what we're actually saying here? Is it a charge? Yeah, basically. Change.
Mr. Mayor,
Right.
just to answer Councillor Whittaker's question, within the fees and tariff proposal within what's been presented to us tonight, there's a proposed increase of 11.6%. What I'm saying is it should just increase in line with the general overall increase of 3%, i.e. bring it down from an 11.6 to 3% increase. Yeah.
Any other member? On the amendment we're talking about, yeah. Councillor Hurd?
Thank you, Mayor. Could I ask if we've actually got the overall costings for each of these items, please? Thank you.
I believe that officers do have a paper. If members do want that to be distributed, that's what I've been advised earlier tonight. So if you do want to see it, but off the top of my head, and I'm sure the officer will jump in behind me if I get it wrong, the bulky item reduction will be an impact of £2,000. The commercial bin lift is £5,000. In terms of the others, I'm not quite sure. I think basically the advice I was given, they were basically cost neutral. But I'll take, if that's incorrect, yeah, I'm getting, yes, more or less cost neutral. So basically £7,000 and then a bit of cost neutral across the others.
Right. Councillor Lishman?
I think, Mr. Mayor, it would be useful to have a very short adjournment. If there is some information from the Finance Department to share around the implications of the proposals, I'm sure that would be useful for all members to have sight of before we come back to make a decision.
So are you moving an adjournment for 10 minutes or 15 minutes? Are you moving an adjournment for 10 minutes?
I'm moving an adjournment for 10 minutes.
Can you
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And Councillor
Right.
Anwar seconding.
Yeah, seconded. Councillor Anwar, it's either seconded. Right, so all those in favour of the adjournment for 10 minutes, please show. Right, thank you, yeah. So please move.
Members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Be seated, please. Are we talking about any member? Yeah.
Wasn't spoken on the amendment.
Right. Any member on the amendment?
Wasn't spoken.
Well, was spoken here. Just Councillor Hurt and then Councillor Husker. Yeah, Councillor Hurt.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to make a couple of comments on the proposed amendment, in that anyone that knows me knows that I'm generally against any increase in the bulky waste charges. I was against the actual introduction of it in the first place. In this case, I can sort of accept it because it's a very, very small increase, and the people that can't afford to pay for bulky waste can't afford to pay for bulky waste collections. It doesn't matter whether it's a 40p increase or whether it's a £40 increase. They can't afford that fee. But there are mitigations in place to help those people. I've already helped one family, and I know Councillor Bridges has been out with Street Scene talking to other residents about it. So on that one, I would rather see those that can afford to pay, those that truly cannot afford to pay, be able to take part in the scheme that helps them with that cost. And the other point I'd like to make is that in the paper we've been given, it states that there would be a discrepancy in the selective licensing programme because the same discount to accredited landlords would have to be given to the other landlords. There are no details whatsoever on how this would be funded. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Husker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll be supporting the amendment because we think the businesses, it'd be good for businesses to have a reduction and maybe invest a bit more money on that controls, because in Burnley it's terrible for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member? Councillor Bert Whistle.
Mr. Mayor, these increases relate to commercial waste collections, certainly number 2, and to reduce it from 5% to 3%, the amount is pretty much insignificant for a business. It would be difficult for a taxpayer who's under pressure at the moment from the government, but businesses, I don't think the taxpayer should be paying for commercial waste, contributing to commercial waste removals. And certainly on the pest control, we offer a service, but there are many, many private services that private companies can go and use, which are much cheaper than the Borough Council are. So I would suggest that we leave that and hopefully stop giving the service to commercial industries, because they can go and buy commercially, but we do it for homes and residential, for residential homes, for people who have rats in their homes, which there are many, in fact very many in Burnley. We should be they can't afford to go to commercial people, but I think we should be doing that for residents. But for commercial premises, I believe there are plenty of commercial companies, private companies that do rat catching that the council can compete with, and if we get through here, they'll just go to the other ones. So I don't agree with either of those two, Madam Mayor. I won't be voting for the amendments.
Thank you. Any other member? Right. 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 And Councillor. Oh, yeah, that's my Thompson. Yeah. Right. Councillor Sue Graham, please. You have a right to reply on this amendment. No, no. Oh, Councillor Ishmael. Yeah. Sorry. I will come back.
we will not be accepting the amendments. I think it's already been eloquently stated in relation to the bulky waste by Councillor Hurt. Councillor Birtwhistle's remarks have also led weight to that view. And in relation to the proposals around the HMOs, where on the face of it they look very attractive, for me and for the groups that I represent, our concern is very much that if you increase fees around this area, are we going to put off our landlords from applying? We have enough problems encouraging them, and therefore we think with the expertise of officers suggesting at this level, this is the appropriate level for us to apply at the present time, and therefore we will not be accepting those amendments either. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah. Right, Councillor Townsend, you have a right to reply on your amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take perhaps some of the responses in the order. For Councillor Hurt, yes, I agree. The scheme that's been put forward in terms of collection of bulky items for those who can't pay, and I think there's been £12,000 the cost of the scheme through the Household Support Fund, although that's not just about bulky waste, it's about many other things as well in terms of education. But do we think it's right as a principle that the vast majority and the thousands of people who do the right thing day in, day out, paying the charges, should subsidise for that bill? Basically, we want to encourage people to do the right thing as far as bulky items are concerned, and we want them to basically see that this council is on their side whenever possible. Yes, in the past, we have had to put bulky charges up in the past, but we did it with a heavy heart. And here I think there's an opportunity. I think people have said, we're talking about £2,000 here, just to send a signal to the people in the borough that we are on their side and we want to clean up the borough and people do the right thing. It's interesting listening to Councillor Birtwhistle tonight compared to what he was saying a few weeks ago when we had plagues of rats, accordingly, running around the town centre, and this council should be doing a lot more to help businesses to clean up their act. This would have been a small thing, again, sending a signal to businesses that we're not just going to slap charges on them for services. We're talking about an 11.6% increase here. If every service that a business had to have went up by 11.6%, just what kind of state would those businesses be in? I don't understand where Councillor Birtwhistle is coming on. Why should this council be an exception? We should be doing our best and keeping charges to an absolute minimum. I'm not saying don't put them up. I'm saying put them up in line with the other, with the 3% general increase. And I take great interest in what Councillor Lishman just said about HMOs, because reading the document, as I have, this council is not even covering its costs of granting licences for HMOs. These are people who spend tens of thousands, even £100,000 on doing a property up to put, you know, 6 or more people into them, and all the, you know, residual impact that has on our communities. And yet, we're not even covering our costs for granting them a licence for a HMO. That's ridiculous. That should be the first thing we do. I'll leave my points there, Councillor Mayor. I hope people support these amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah. Right. An amendment has been moved and seconded. We will now go to the vote here. All those in favour of the amendment, please show. Right. All those against? Right. Yeah. That amendment is lost. We will now go back to the original motion. Does any member who hasn't already spoken wish to speak? Okay, no, right. And then sorry.
Sorry, Councillor.
Oh, Councillor Lishman, yeah, right to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick word. I would just like to say I'm glad the vote has gone as it has, and equally, it's a shame that Councillor Townsend couldn't have been putting forward these amendments, which he sees as so critical, even though they've failed, whilst he was on the executive and had the opportunity, with the majorities that he had, to put it through. But obviously, when you get into opposition, as I know only too well, you have time to reflect and to come to a different conclusion than you might have done when you were in control. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, members, we will
Just
now.
a point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry.
I don't know whether, just a point of order, I don't know whether my question from before has to be answered, but that's the point of order. I want to know whether it does have to be answered on record. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Lishman, yeah.
I have spoken to the councillor outside. Burnley United apparently is the organisation that covers the cost for that area, but I have also promised you a more detailed response and you will get that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lishman. We will now vote for the original motion. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? Yeah. Right. The original motion is carried. Right. Members, please quiet. We are moving towards item 5E, Treasury Management Activity 2023-24 Mid-Year Report. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you move the report's recommendations as outlined in the Executive Minute 62?
Move those, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anwar, will you second the recommendations?
I second the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Any member? No? Okay. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? The item is carried. Thank you. Item F, Food Safety Service Delivery Plan 2024-25. Councillor Baker, will you move the report's recommendations as outlined in the Executive Minute 64?
I move that report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Anwar, will you second the report?
I second the report, Mr. Mayor.
Any member? All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? Okay. This item is carried. Item 5G, Health and Safety Intervention Plan 2024-25. Councillor Baker, will you move the report's recommendations as outlined in the Executive Minute 65?
I so do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Anwar, will you second the report?
I second the report, Mr. Mayor.
Any member? All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. This item is carried. Item 5H, constitutional reporting, amendment to outside body representation. Councillor Anwar, will you move the report?
I move the report, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you second the report?
Second the report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any member? There is just one item for decision, so we shall now move to the vote on recommendation 4, that Councillor Jack Lawner be appointed as the council representative on Burnley Together Steering Group. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? Okay. That item is carried. Thank you. The rest of the report is noted. Item 5I, constitutional reporting, journal substitute scheme. Councillor Anwar, will you move the report, please?
I move the report, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you second the report, please?
Second the report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any member? Councillor Hurt and Councillor McGowan. Councillor Hurt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank the officers that worked so hard on this. Those that know me know that I've been pushing for something like this since I became a councillor. In fact, I've started pushing for it before I became a councillor, but there wasn't the will to do it back when I first became a councillor, but we eventually got through the disabled members substitute scheme. I'm pleased to see that this scheme is now here for tonight, for approval tonight. It is a progressive scheme. It not only means that disabled members who cannot attend meetings for genuine reasons can't be represented or their group be represented on the committees, but it also gives that same ability to any member, such as those with caring responsibilities, young children's, work commitments and other things that happen in life. So please vote for it. And I do thank the officers because I know they work very hard on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurt. Councillor McGowan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm not coming into this debate falling on one side or another. I genuinely want to listen, and I was quite happy to listen to what Councillor Hurt was just saying there, to the arguments for this. You see, just for context, in my mind, the last time we spoke about something like this was a council meeting where it was substitutes for those with disabilities, and we supported that. However, on this, and just there's a few queries that I've got. I know it's all laid out in Appendix A. It says that at the start of the year, 2 members from each group will be able to be put forward as a substitute, and then up to 3:30 p.m. on the day of said meeting, you can essentially call the council and say, this substitute standing in on my behalf. Now, I just worry that with good intentions sometimes allows negative consequences, such as, are we going to see a sudden disappearance of members in DC committees when it affects their particular area, for instance? Or are we going to see other things prioritised which shouldn't be prioritised over council committees like scrutiny? And I take the point about childcare. You know, I've got a little boy myself, but I just think there is scope for abuse, and I don't know whether that's been fully debated and whether that's been taken into consideration in this. So I just wanted to hear off the proposer of this report really the sell for why this is a great idea and why we should go for it, because I do remember we spoke at a few full council meetings ago about it being mission creep. Started on this and then moved, and there were a suggestion at one point that the Greens were talking about substitutes for non-councillors at one point. So I definitely don't want to get to that position. Is this the end of the road? And again, like I say, what's the sell for it? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Huskell.
Yeah, again, I've gone against this a few times. I've never been happy about it. The reason being, if we're on a committee and you've got a committee and it might be a 2-3 hearing, you might have to go 3 times to this hearing because you haven't come to a decision. And on third hearing, you might have had councillors sitting through 2 meetings and listen to the concerns what are going on, and on the third meeting, they're not there. And then they're going to have to vote on that certain meeting. And then they're going to be asking, well, what happened to the first 2 meetings? We weren't there. And the substitute is not going to be able to make that decision because he's not going to know what first 2 meetings said. So I think it's a farce, and I'll be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah. Right. Sorry. Any more? Go on. Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just to take the questions that have just been posed there, the comments. I think the first thing that needs to be said is that the original report that came to member structures and then came to this council was actually asking for a substitute scheme where anybody could substitute for another member on committees, but there was no stipulation in terms of training for those members and whether those members would be named and identified at full council, preferably at the annual general meeting of the council, so that we would know who those members are, so they have the proper training, so they're not just turning up, as Councillor Hosker has just alluded to there, they're just turning up and you've got substitutes coming to a meeting. This is about equality, and it's making sure that we provide the opportunities for all members to be present and to have a full set of members present in meetings to be able to make those decisions on behalf of residents. In response to Councillor McGowan's point around that, that these things can be open to abuse, I think what we've got to do is we've got to obviously monitor it, but like with anything, everything is taken in good faith, and we've got to have faith in one another to be able to run these schemes. It is a step forward, and it is, I believe, it is the right step forward, but it's a very different scheme to the one that came. And I know that it was discussed at member structures, and there was cross-party support for it at member structures as well for us to do this. But it is about committees. It is about committees. It's not about outside bodies or any other meetings that members would be representative on, because obviously some of those are exec members who represent on there. So this is the scheme as is, and this is the final scheme. Hopefully that answers your question.
Right.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah. Well, now we're going for the votes on this item. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? Right. That item is carried. Thank you. The rest of the report is noted. Item 6 on the agenda, reports from committee chairs. Please can members note that for this item, members should not refer to named individuals or addresses when asking questions or making observations. Questions on delegated council functions such as planning and licensing should be directed to the relevant committee chair rather than executive member. Our first committee is the 6A scrutiny. Councillor Gail Barton, will you move the report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move my report.
Any member? No. Right. Our next item is 6B, audit and standards. Any member?
No, Councillor. Councillor Mark.
Right. Oh, sorry. Councillor Margaret Brindle, will you move the report? Then I'll go to the member.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the report.
Thank you, Ian. Any member? No? That's good. Item 6C, development control. Councillor Saeed Chowdhury, will you move the report, please? Oh, that's okay. Any member? He's been away. That's one. Is there any reason? Yeah. Right. So, any member on this? Thank you. No, yeah. 6D, licensing. As the committee has not met since the last full council meeting, there is no report from the chair of the licensing committee this evening. So that's clear. Item 7, strategic plan progress reports. I will take each report in order. I will ask for any questions on the report and the executive member will respond to a number of questions. The same procedure will then be followed for observations. Can I remind members with a question or observation to clearly quote the page number and reference and allow time for the executive member and everyone else to find it in their agenda packs. Also, will members please be concise with their questions and observations? First is from the leader, Councillor Anwar. Will you please move your report?
I move my report, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please bear with me, Councillor Anwar. I've actually got 3 questions, but I'll be quick. First of all, it's page 202, PR1, the levelling up agenda, etc. First of all, can I thank him for sight of the letter he sent to ministers post the last meeting that we had. What I really would like to know now, has the minister responded positively to that letter, where basically we're questioning why Padiham, Hapton, Worsthorne and other villages have been omitted from the town's fund, and obviously we're at the point where we're setting up the board itself, and that would be important to get clarified before we actually do that. So I'd be interested to know if we've had a response to that letter and what, if anything, was in it. Secondly, regarding levelling up, we talk a lot about town to turf and we talk a lot about Newtown Mill, but I'm really interested in the third project, which is the train station improvements. They don't appear to be mentioned at all on any reports throughout the pack tonight. And my understanding is that the money has to be spent by the end of March 2024. So I don't even know if somebody's been up there with a tape measure yet. So I'm not sure what's happening with that, and if you could please update us. And finally, loose relationship with levelling up, but the county council last week brought up the spectre of on-street parking and parking meters again, which would, I think in anybody's view, be a detriment to levelling up our town centre. The deputy leader of the county council said he's going to consult with all council leaders about potential streets in any areas. Can he confirm to us that he'll be going back and saying no streets in Burnley need parking meters? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Anwar, you want to respond to this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Townsend, for those questions. In response to the first one, obviously a question that was raised around correspondence that was sent to the Minister around inclusion of Padiham. We have had a response, but it's not been a positive one in terms of whether Padiham would be included. And obviously what we've got to do then is, obviously, we have asked the reasons for that, but they have not been clear. And what we will do is, what I can do is the correspondence that did come through, I can share that with officers, and I'll get officers to share that with members who want to see that and see what the reasons for that are. With regards to this train station as part of the Levelling Up Fund bid, obviously Councillor Townsend and colleagues have been on the executive and known that right the way through this project, the train station element of the programme has been the one that has been most difficult, but that's not through the work that the council officers are doing, or even through our efforts. I think it's more to do, obviously, with Network Rail and trying to get those contracts in place, and then an increase in costs that come aligned with that. We are working to get through that as quickly as we can, and there are conversations in place with government as well with regards to the funds. In case, obviously, we're not going to meet that March 24 deadline, but it's about having conversations, see if that can be extended, and obviously the MP's office is involved in that as well. On the issue of street parking that's being proposed by LCC, there is a Lancashire Leaders tomorrow, and we will be vehemently opposing any street parking coming to Burnley streets. So hope that answers your questions, Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Councillor. Any more questions? Councillor McGovern.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask the council leader regarding the Manchester Road Bridge. Can you not hear me? Oh, right, okay. 202, page 202. It's about this Manchester Road Bridge. Just has there been any movement on it in terms of going out to tender or anything? Like, what is the update on that, please?
Thank you. Councillor Anwar.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, with regards to, as I said, it's not through lack of effort on our part. It is the hold-up has been because of Network Rail and not being able to secure a starting point with that, and it is due to the increasing costs of it. So what we have to do is there have been conversations to try and extend the deadline on when we need to have that money spent by. But what we're trying to do is try to get to that point so we ensure that that project does get go ahead and does get completed as well. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Husker. Okay, yeah. Right. Any observation? Then we move into Councillor Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's page 202 regarding the Levelling Up Fund. I'm quite shocked, Mr. Mayor, that the reply we've got from the government seems to be that Padiham is not included in this bid. And we've had the MP over the last 12 months basically asking people at Padiham, give us your ideas of how we're going to spend this 20 million. And now we're told that Padiham, and I presume Hapton as well, and I haven't got the full details, I'm just going off what I've heard tonight, is not included. I think that's quite shocking, and I think the MP needs to come, and whether he comes to this council or puts it on his Facebook page, and ask him, why are we not included in that bid? Absolutely disgraceful.
Councillor Husker.
Mr. Harbour, I don't know what you're on about with a Facebook page. This day and age, I don't tend to go on this Facebook page as much. I tend to come off because listening to you lot just sent me insane. So I don't go on Facebook much. And what you've just said then, I'll be checking up on because it's news to me as well. So when I get the facts, you'll know the facts.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anwar, you want to respond to these two observations? Yeah. Is there anyone else?
Councillor Whittaker coming in.
Yeah. No, yeah. Just them two to respond.
Yeah, I don't think I need to respond to that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Any more observations? Thank you. We are moving towards Deputy Leader and Executive Member for Resources and Performance. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you please move your report?
Move the report, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and please bear with me. One less question. I've got two, actually. So I was interested in reading the Audit and Standards minutes.
Page number, please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, PF2, page 204, running into 205. It covers revenue budgets, short statements of accounts. The external auditor, in their report that went to Audit and Standards, said that the council should update its MTFS to reflect the potential financial impact of a change in delivery partner and the estimated costs of delivery for their climate change strategy. Can you confirm that these will be included in the next revision of the MTFS, which I'm assuming will probably go to scrutiny in a couple of weeks' time ahead of the budget? And secondly, can the exec members share her plans regarding empty home premiums? The council are allowed to change the empty home premiums from 1st of April after a change in government regulations. I'm just wondering what your plans are regarding those premiums. If you could share them with us. Thank you.
Councillor McGovern.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is page 205, PF4. Members will remember that when the council decided to spend 72 grand on carbon literacy training, I stood up and said I thought it was an extravagance at best, but I predicted the company running the training would start with the bronze, move to the silver, then to the gold, and then platinum. So can I just ask on the record, your report says that we're soon to be applying for the silver award. So is any more money being spent on carbon literacy training? Because if so, I think residents have a right to know. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lishman, you want to reply?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start with Councillor Townsend. In relation to the next MTFS, you won't see the implications around climate change in that one because we've only just received the full report. I think that's coming to the March exec. I'm looking at our chief exec.
You'll look right.
I'm pretty sure we're talking about this in the March, and that will then fit into it as a consequence. So it will not be in the one that you see in February, but it's likely to be in the one after that. In relation to the empty homes, I think it's a watch this space for the budget speech. In relation to the question around the costs of carbon literacy training, we have done what we always do in this council. When we've had to bring in training, we train our trainers, and we now provide all of our carbon literacy training in-house with staff that we provide. We only use external when we're unable to do that ourselves. So we are still carrying on with it, and I would put out a plea to all councillors here to join me in doing that. I have done my carbon literacy training. It's incredibly helpful and gives you a much broader understanding of the issues that councils face with regard to becoming carbon neutral. And as I've said, we will be putting forward a plan for our plans for carbon neutral. It's important that we are, as a council, able to deal with that correctly, having the knowledge base to be able to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Townsend. Councillor Lishman. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's good. Any observations then? Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your answer, Councillor Lishman. I take it from what you said that no extra money is being spent than the £72,000 that we've already spent. Thank you very much.
Any more observations? Thank you. Moving toward Executive Member for Sustainable Development and Growth, Councillor Cunliffe, will you please move your report?
Just go on that one first. It's the order's the wrong way around. Go on that one.
Happy to move.
Yeah, morning.
Yeah, we'll go to Councillor Baker. Our order on the script, Mayor's script is in.
Oh, yeah.
So just go to Councillor Baker.
So, yeah. Executive Member for Community and Environmental Services, Councillor Baker, will you please move your report?
I move my report, Mr. Mayor. I've already been thrown off one job tonight, so to miss this would have been a mistake. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So where are we going now? Yeah. I don't know. Any questions now? Councillor McGowan.
Every time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. PL1, page 209. I'm just looking at the report of the exec member where it says we're planning to refurbish 2 bus shelters to include what is essentially plants on the roof. Can I just ask where he'd like to see them placed, how much they cost, and if he's spoken to any resident who has shown support for these? Thank you.
Councillor Baker.
I'll keep it short. I don't know the full costs. I'll get back to you with exactly what it is on that bit. I haven't personally spoken to any residents, and I will get back to you with all the full information you want in the next day or so. Hopefully tomorrow. Thank you.
Right. Did you? Yeah, Councillor, yeah, please stand up.
Mr Mayor, it's just a quick question. Previous council meeting, we talked about CCTV in the town centre and £400,000 of extra funding that we'd secured. I asked a question at the time about certain areas of the town that required possible upgrades and new location sites. I followed this up. I was answered by the officers, by the way, very quickly the following day. I followed this up a couple of weeks later at scrutiny at the beginning of this month. I asked the officers a question about extra funding for more CCTV cameras. I realise, obviously, Councillor Baker's got his finger on the pulse with this sort of thing. So I'm just wondering, what have those officers reported back to you regarding extra CCTV for businesses near this building that have been broken into, etc., places like Williams Lounge Bar? What have the officers come back to you on that, please, for the extra funding that may be available from Lampack or the Police and Crime Commissioner?
Thank you, Councillor Whittaker. Councillor Baker.
Again, it's a forward-thinking one because we're waiting for the budget now to see what's coming up next year. There's nothing going to happen this month or anything like that. The officers are looking into it and what other CCTVs needed, so we will come back to you with a full answer in the fullness of time. Councillor, that's acceptable. I can give you a brief answer tomorrow, if you like, on what the current position is. Thank you.
The question was just specific to that extra funding that the council said it would look into. That was all. So, but thank you. If you could respond to me by tomorrow, that would be splendid.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Any observations? Councillor Whittaker again.
Yeah, 208 PL1. Sorry, I don't think I mentioned that before I asked a question. It's just, obviously, just to reassure all councillors, we've all read this, and members of the public, the antisocial behaviour is actually falling in our borough. In fact, in Birmingham Padding, it's fallen by 34.3%. It's fantastic, especially for the likes of Councillor Lewis Harbour and Councillor Ingham, who unfortunately cannot be here this evening. That Gorford Ward has actually had the greatest reduction of antisocial behaviour, to the tune of 63.3%. Overall, it adds up to a 24% decrease in antisocial behaviour from December last year. So that's brilliant to know. We mentioned about writing letters earlier on. Yet again, as we do seem to be writing letters, I think that maybe we should write one to Andrew Snowden, the Police and Crime Commissioner, and possibly to Anthony Higginbotham also, the Member of Parliament, who lobbied government for extra funding for Lancashire Police, and was successful in gaining this extra £2 million of funding for the government's antisocial action plan, which brought us Operation Centurion here to Birmingham Padding, which was specifically designed to reduce antisocial behaviour. And I think this council should possibly do that, as these are great results we should be celebrating, and we should thank the people responsible for delivering them.
Councillor Baker.
No further.
Sorry,
No further comments on that one.
Councillor
I'll take the
Townsend.
next one. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sorry. It's just an observation in terms of, if you were minded to write a letter to Andrew Snowden, perhaps you'd include in that letter why he's proposing to increase council tax by 4.75%. That's where the money's coming from. Thank you.
Good point.
No political comment, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Right, okay, thank you. Right, we are moving toward the next. Councillor Lubna Khan, will you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move my report.
Any questions? Councillor McGovern?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. PL3, page 213. So I note in the exec report there's a mention that the Gleeson site in Hapton is almost complete, which is really good news. A lot of families have moved in there. However, can I just ask the exec member if she could please let me know when the official handover has taken place, please? And the reason why I ask is I'm told we can't get any dog bins placed on that site until that's happened. Basically, residents just want a dog bin installed at the bottom of Wilkinson Road and what meets Grimshaw Road. It's taken a while, but I'm not going to stop chasing it on residents' behalf, and I'd really appreciate if she were to let me know this handover date so we can finally get it sorted for them. Thank you.
Any more questions? Councillor Khan, you want to respond?
Thank you for your question. I'm not exactly sure of the handover date, but I will email you and then hopefully you can answer residents' questions. Thank you.
Any observations, Councillor Birtwistle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's page 213, PL3, and it relates to the 69 family homes being built by Calico on Kinross Street. Can I welcome that? And can I say, I would love to see that being 690. We have a major issue in Burnley with properties in very, very poor condition. I had an occasion only yesterday to visit a lady who lived, a single mother who has 3 children and 1 on the way, living in a 2 up, 2 down, what I would class as a slum. The house was full of black damp. It was full of black damp. The children's bedclothes were damp because they were pushed against the wall. When she checked with Calico, the only property they had on Be With Us was one property, and that was in Nelson. What are these people supposed to do? There is nowhere near enough. We're building plenty of houses at 200, 300 and 400,000 pounds that people like this young lady can only dream of owning. But what we are not building are enough affordable rented houses in the social register sector, like companies like Calico. 669 properties for a place the size of Burnley and Pendle, because they cover both, is absolutely outrageously low. My observation and question is, where are the people living in the properties that are basically unfit for habitation? Where are they supposed to go? Now, this young lady, she made the complaint, and it's almost certain that she will get a Section 21 notice to quit. So that will give her 60 days to find somewhere to live. Where will she go? The majority of the private rented sector now, she cannot afford, and a lot of the houses that she can afford are not fit for habitation. My question to people in this chamber, and particularly to the government, fund the properties that are needed for people in this situation, rather than spending money on other things like, well, I mean, I talk about the town to turf, and you need to go up there and see how nice it will look, then look up Belvedere Road and look at some of the state of properties up there that people have to live in. We need to invest, or the government, we can as a council, but the government need to invest in properties for people in the situation that the young woman I went to see yesterday was in. I don't know where to go with it, but this is what I would really wish to happen. So I would hope that next year, or the next year, Calico will be building 690 properties for the people who are in the condition that this young lady was in Burnley yesterday. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Khan, you want to respond to his observation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to thank Councillor Birtwistle for his observations, and I agree wholeheartedly. I think as councillors, whether in whatever capacity, if we're able to influence good quality housing in reasonable areas, we should always try to make sure that happen, and also encourage our residents to be more understanding of the fact that we do need more housing. In the 8-9 years I've been a councillor, one of the things that comes up quite a lot is, you know, we don't want houses here, etc. But when you hear stories like this, it really brings it to home that new homes need to go somewhere. And so we really welcome that in Burnley. I hope that we can, you know, obviously all push for that. And that's, you know, there's many different providers of accommodation. It's not just Calico. There are a few others that we work closely with. But I would like to see that come to fruition as well. Thank you, Councillor Birtwistle.
Any more observation to Lubna Khan? Councillor Husker.
Observation being, Mr. Birtwistle makes a point. I know you're going for MP, but you're making a point here and you're pointing finger. The ice situation has been as bad when you was MP, and it's been as bad as when Jim Cooper was MP.
Mr. Lishman, yes.
That's the second occasion this evening where we've heard a direct challenge across the chamber to an individual, not addressed through you.
Yeah.
I really think it's time for such your authority.
Thank you.
Apologies,
Your
Mr
point,
Mayor.
yeah.
Apologies, Mr Mayor. I should have done that. He's correcting what he says. But
Yeah,
I don't
please-
take back the
please,
statement,
yeah.
what I've just said about what I've said.
Councillor Oscar, please respect each other like we said in the beginning here.
Mr Mayor,
Right.
he's making a point of it, not me. He wants to keep his gob shut.
Thank you. Please.
Mr Mayor, point of order. Mr Mayor, surely we don't need to have language that. Councillor Hosker has made his point, but he doesn't need to talk like that after the debate is ended. If he's happy to see these people living in these houses, then so be it. That doesn't bother me. But that he should not break into the meeting and come up with language like that, Mr Mayor. And I would ask you to ask him to withdraw what he has just said.
Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just listening to that, and I think all members just need to be reminded, really, just of the presentation, speech, lecture that we had from former Councillor Ferrier, reminding us of the code of conduct and how we need to be behaving in this chamber. I've said over the past 2 or 3, 4 years, what we've seen is we've seen a change in behaviour. Members of the public see us and the way that we speak to one another, and what they don't want to see is us having a go at each other, shouting across to each other. We can have a debate, we can disagree on things, but it needs to be done with respect. And we've only heard that just this afternoon, this evening from former Councillor Ferrier, and I think all of us need to be reminded of that. And if we can, going forward, please, everybody, and speak through Mr. Mayor and the Chair and conduct these meetings properly, so we're setting an example to people who are watching at home or in the chamber.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whittaker.
Mr. Mayor, my observation on this, I fully agree opposite with what's been said about the terrible situation that we find ourselves in here in Burnley, which is historic with the housing. For whichever period of time we've been in for that, it doesn't seem to have got any better. I remember this council basically forming the association that runs Calico, etc. now. I think from Councillor Oscar's point of view, he's as passionate as all of us are about making sure that the housing in our borough is fit for purpose. And by that passion, he's obviously directed towards an individual. I'm quite certain it wasn't meant to be personal, but I just want to make that observation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Khan, you want to conclude this?
Thank you for your observations, I think. I would just like to reiterate just to summarise, I think everybody is passionate about good quality housing for our local residents. I think what we've seen an increase of, especially tonight, is some political, I don't know, point scoring maybe. I think when it comes to residents, it's not about that. I think it's more important that we keep their priorities, our priorities. And if we get people to come in and say X, Y, and Z doesn't mean it's true, it's interpretation. So I think that we've signed up to the White Ribbon campaign. We should respect each other. I, for one, wholeheartedly stand by that, as do some of my previous colleagues and many people in this chamber. So I think we should just basically stick to that and just keep our residents' best interests at heart. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Right, we are going back to our agenda. Executive Member for Sustainable Development and Growth, Councillor Cunliffe.
Good evening, Mayor. Happy to move my report. Thank you.
There you go, Mayor. Any questions? Councillor Birtwistle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've given Councillor Cunliffe prior notice of my question. It relates to page 217, Town to Turf. I am being inundated with people asking me when this shambles will be resolved. So could Councillor Cunliffe advise this council of an update on the situation on the Town to Turf project, and which has created buses now travelling up Centenary Way to the top, round the roundabout and back down to get in, the closure of roads. And can he give us an update on when this project will be finished? That's part of the question. The second part is, a bit he doesn't know, but relates to a similar thing. There's been some roadworks now outside on Corn Road, outside the hotel, just beyond the Prairie. It's been there for God only knows long. Could he also, while he's inquiring about which is causing problems in Burnley, the traffic lights at the Prairie, while he's inquiring to the County Council regarding the town to turf, could he also ask, when will that be resolved?
Want to respond? Yeah, Councillor Conley.
Thank you, Councillor Bertry. So I'm really glad that you did raise this because it's like yourself, I am getting inundated with requests about the disturbances that it causes to many people's travel plans across the town on a day-to-day basis. I think, let me just set the record straight on Town to Turf. I think when it was approved, it was always going to be a 75-week project, which is 18 months. At the same time, there was another project that came in, which was for the culvert, the viaduct to go in, which was a 6-week project. Some people thought, and I think there was bad comms around this at the time, or not enough comms, that was the same project, and it was a separate project. The viaduct project to finish the culvert off was slated for 6 weeks. I think it took about 8 weeks in the end, but that wasn't the end of the Town to Turf project. The Town to Turf project was 18 months. So it should finish in July this year. Now, it's currently 2 months behind. That's what we've been told. It's due, or depending on some controllables and some uncontrollables, i.e. the weather, they're hoping to pull back some of that time so that it will be finished, hopefully, before the football season. And I can quite happy to regularly keep the council updated on that as it goes along. Now, my primary concern since I came into this position on this has been public safety on the roads, but also for pedestrians as well. And this came starkly into view when I came off the Burnley against Sheffield United game, where I had to pick up an 80-odd-year-old gentleman who tripped on some of the concrete on the side of the road from the Town to Turf project. I was straight down there the day after. There's now lighting in that because it was very poor lighting in that area. And I've also been reported of another pedestrian that fell around the same time of that. So I think public safety is the main concern. Now, and I will continue to push on that. I've been down there most of today as well, looking at the disruption from the diversion. Now, the diversion plan that's come in is currently it's closing off the west of Yorkshire Street, which, if you will, is you can't get access from the roundabout now into west of Yorkshire Street, which is a bit under Kirby Walk. And now Cross Street, if you will, is now two-way. It's always been one-way. Temporarily, it's now two-way. I've been informed by the site manager this morning as I went down there, that will be probably 2 or 3 months while that bit is closed. So now this three-way, sorry if this is a long explanation, but I think residents listening to this deserve a full explanation. And I hope you appreciate that, Councillor Bristol. So it's now 3-point entry from a 4-point junction. So they're reporting to me, and I've seen it over the last few days because I got it in the neck the first morning because concerned parents taking the kids for school buses down there were concerned if they could get on the bus station or not. Traffic flow has actually slightly improved because there's only three ways out of that junction now. And I think if you go and look at the car parks in the town today, yesterday, since this has come in, they're largely full. And the amount of footfall that's still going on in the town. So people who want to get into the town, get through there, are still managing to do that. And the car parks are full, even the private ones and the public ones. So that's a good sign. Now, and there's been no accidents, and public safety has carried on over this last 2-3 days with this diversion. I understand, and it's frustrating. There are other roadworks in town, Parliament Street, etc., that will come in for emergency works. There's nothing we can really do if an emergency work comes on for a utility, which is what's happened with the Parliament Street. I get frustrated as well with the length of time it might take, and it might be down there for the weekend, and you think, well, why did you put it up for the work? You know, because the work is not seemingly being done. And it is frustrating. Change is frustrating. But I think for me, it's always about public safety and looking at that. So the bus companies have been informed. They're informed of this diversion. They're informed that this will change. In the end, the west of Cross Street will return to being one way, and it'll be one way in from the junction, from the roundabout or the traffic lights when it's finished, into the west bit of Yorkshire Street, and then in through round the bus station down Cross Street. That's what it will be. It'll be one way, only one way in. So that's how it will finish. Now, if Councillor Bertwistle or any other member wants to come down to me to the site office, the engineers are on top of it. If anyone wants to come down with me, I know some of the Lancashire County Councils have been down and they want to come down. I'm quite happy to arrange a meeting. There's a Burnley engineer and there's Lancashire engineers on there that lead the site. I'm quite happy to show people around so that we can pass out messages. Now, I think that the Commons do need to approve on this from Lancashire's side, and I'll be pushing through that through Lancashire so that public is getting pushed out the information that they need in prior notice, because there will be further changes. So hopefully that answers your question on that. On the Cold Road one, I will get back to you. I do travel along there quite often because I go to work in Briarfield 2 days a week, so I do see that once, but I'll get back to you when that's hopefully what's going on with that one. I've been focused a bit more on the town to turf, but I understand the other roadworks.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Conway, for your comprehensive answer. Councillor McGowan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do appreciate that update. That were very thorough. My question is PR4, page 221. So basically, for a third time now, developers have come in using the local plan and proposed to build on the land behind Westview Terrace. And residents know already, they know that I'll stand up for them on this. The road's too narrow to accommodate the additional 33 houses that's being proposed there. There's already problems with congestion and parking as it is. I did reach out to the developer about this before the official application even went in. And of course, I'll speak up on behalf of those impacted. But can I just ask that we take more of a robust approach to repeat requests for unsuitable developments? Because they knew before this application was put in that it was rejected on a particular reason, and nothing has changed yet. We're going through this whole rigmarole, and residents again are worried, and the same conversations are being had. And I just think that maybe if we're a little bit more proactive on an officer approach before it goes in, it might be better. So if you could pass that message on, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Conley, again.
I appreciate you for being robust on this, and I'll happily pass that message on. Obviously, certain applications or individual applications will come before DC or not, depending if they go through that process. But yeah, I admire your tenacity on that and fighting for your residents on that, and I think I encourage you to carry on doing that, and I look forward to that coming through, and I'll pass it on to officers. And if you need anything else on that, please, and you're not getting enough information, please let me know. Yeah, thank you.
Any observations? Councillor Bertwistle and
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's
Councillor Bertwistle, I have to read something before you start here. Under Council Procedure Rule 8.1, unless the majority of members present vote for the meeting to continue, any meeting that has lasted for 3 hours will adjourn immediately. Remaining business will be considered at a time and date fixed by the chair. If she does not fix a date, the remaining business will be considered at the next ordinary meeting. If members wish for this meeting to continue beyond 9:30, will somebody please move a motion under Council Procedure Rule 13? Motions without notice, L, that the meeting continue beyond 3 hours in duration.
I'd like to move, Mr. Mayor.
And like to second someone?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yeah, continue. So all those in favor, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? Right, so motion is passed, and we moving toward Councillor Bertwistle's observation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's an observation on page 220, PR4. Before I make this observation, could I thank Councillor Cunliffe for that excellent reply regarding the town to the turf. I'll try and remember what he said and tell the residents when they approached me in future. I should have taped him. He said, listen to that. So anyway, this relates to applications and approvals an appeal for a non-determination of a full application for 200 dwellings on Hollins Cross Farm. Can I comment that the planning application by the inspector approved the planning application subject to an overwinter flooding survey? That is not in the minutes, but that was part of the decision of the inspector, subject to an overwinter flooding survey. I have to say that the overwinter flooding survey is not taking place to the instructions given by the inspector. There was a drawing issued where they had to put the probes in the ground. They were supposed to put 5 in, they put 3 in up to Christmas, and they put 2 further ones in, but they are not in the position where they were supposed to put them in. So when it won't come back to the council, because of obviously the inspector gave planning permission on those grounds. The residents will be instructed for a judicial review if this passes through and it's found to be that the flooding report is at best stretched with its facts. I won't say no more than that.
Right, okay. You want to take another observation, and then you can, Councillor McGovern, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For those that haven't seen it, Shops in Padiham have got together. From next week, we'll be starting late night opening from 7 p.m. on a Thursday. So I just wanted to throw my weight behind it, really. I think it's a great idea. I think now the centre's been done up and looking at its best. Best it's looked in a long time, and I hope everyone gets out, shops local, and supports some of the independent shops, because it really makes a difference. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Connolly, yeah, respond to these two. I've got some more afterward.
Yeah, Councillor Burt, so thank you for raising that. Yeah, I will pass that on, and yeah, I think the full process should proceed. So, but I'll pass that on to planning. Thank you. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. One of the first visits that I took was down to Padiham when I took in this position, and it's amazing to see the transformation, but to see the localness of it is fantastic, and the local shop. So yeah, thanks for raising that, and yeah, hopefully I can get down there myself as well, because it's all looking good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brindle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. PR2, page 216, the Sandygate Square and Ridgewood School, who are opening the coffee shop. I'm really pleased to see that this has gone ahead, because Ridgewood School do such a good job with regard to the children that are there. I know this personally because my granddaughter passed away October 22 at the age of 17 after a lot of good work they'd done there. So I will be supporting this from my point of view as a director at Freshfields Nursery. Freshfields, well, it's sited on a nursery place at Cemetery Lane, which is an organisation for providing daycare for people with learning difficulties, and we need schools in Burnley like Ridgewood as feeder schools to give extra help. At Freshfields they do help into employment based on agriculture, and it's also a feather in the cap for Burnley Council, who actually own the site and have been very supportive. So hopefully as we go forward with Ridgewood School and Freshfields, that we can provide a much valued service for people with disabilities and who are less fortunate than ourselves as we go forward. And a thank you to Burnley Council for the work that they do as well as the local schools.
Thank you. I've got one more. Councillor Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's page 217, I think it is, PR3, Time to Turf. I appreciate Councillor Cunliffe's attempt to try and answer the question from Councillor Birtwistle. But I've got to say, Mr. Mayor, that if anybody was watching that on YouTube tonight, they'll be more baffled now than they are before the question was asked. I think it's really unfair that Councillor Cunliffe has to try and explain what's going on around there when it's a Lancashire County Council scheme and they're supposed to be delivering it. So despite his valiant attempts to try and explain it to us, if we're being honest about it, none of us are any the wiser. So it should be LCC who's actually answering that question and not Councillor Cunliffe. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Cunliffe, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Brindle's first and then...
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Councillor Brindle. Yeah, I fully agree. I think it's really saddening to see empty spaces in our public buildings, but it's really warming to see that the councillors and I'm presuming the past exec as well have worked a bit on this so that this space is filled, and it's fantastic to see that Ridgewood are in there. And yeah, definitely when we see that there's a certain group in our residents from early ages all the way through that need that extra attention. It's fantastic to hear that, so thanks for raising that. Yeah, Councillor Harbour, I'm in a difficult position as a Lancashire County Councillor. If I'd have just stood up and said, listen, this is LCC's issue, you would have said, oh, you're an LCC councillor. So I feel like I have to explain it. And there is an interesting one on this, on the comms, and I think the comms should come from LCC because they're the lead on this, and I'll be pushing as an LCC councillor and as a Burnley executive, I'll be pushing LCC for doing that. There should be QR codes up, and there should be all sorts of methods. It should be better on BBC Radio Lancashire. It never gets mentioned. So I'll be continuing to push on that as a dual-hatted councillor. So, well, thanks for raising that. But I didn't want to pass the buck because you would have said, oh, you're a Lancashire County councillor. So, and I'm sure other dual-hatted members will agree with me on that. Thank you.
Right, Councillor.
Order, just a point of order, Mr. Mayor. When we talk about it being an LCC issue, I'm not arguing that LCC have been great in this project. What I will say, though, is Burnley Borough Council are actually responsible for administering it, and we went out to tender and chose LCC as the contractor. That's why the executive member has the information he does, and that's why he's talking about it. It's not a purely LCC matter.
Yeah, Mayor, if I may, I mean, my experience of going down there is that, yeah, this is largely implemented by LCC, but on the instances like this morning, when the Burnley engineer officer is in there, the collaboration that they're seeing and going through to get these things right, and it's a difficult and it's a large project, it's a massive project with many stages and many uncontrollables. Anyone who's done project management would probably understand and empathise with the difficulties that they've got. I know that doesn't sit well with the public necessarily because you want to get from A to B as quick as you can, and we all do. But I think it is good to see that the collaboration between LCC staff and Burnley Council staff on the ground to make sure this goes forward as smoothly as it possibly can is really good, and I think it's a lesson for us all to learn. Thank you.
Right. Any more observations? Councillor Husker.
Yeah, Councillor Cunliffe, I think Councillor Harbour were aiming that at me, and it just comes your way because we're both county councillors. And I think he was aiming it at me, and I think it's because I'm county councillor for that area. And the reason I haven't made a comment about it, Mr. Harbour, is because I'm sat on DC, and we can't make a pre-judgment.
Councillor Harbour, please sit down here. Yeah.
Councillor Harbour, we can't make a pre-judgment, can we? Otherwise, you'll be turning around and saying, sat on DC is making prejudging an application.
Councillor Husker.
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
No personal attacks, please. I'm not going to allow personal attacks here, please, here. Right. You want to conclude your, just wind up?
I think I'm all finished, Mr. Mayor. I think that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, we are moving toward next item, Executive Member for Health, Culture and Well-being. Councillor Lorner, will you please move your report?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Last but not least, hopefully, I move my report.
Right. Any questions? Any observations? Councillor McGovern.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is PL4, page 223. I just wanted to make a really positive note to finish this council meeting, which is that it's about the play strategy and our parks and things. Over in Hapton, we've been working as borough councillors with the parish council to get a pump track in Hapton, and we're looking at a £70,000 scheme. It looks like we've been successful in the external funding that we've gone out to get this. Fingers crossed we'll be able to move forward with it positively in the next month or so. The contribution from Burnley Borough Council is about £7,500. The rest is funded through parish and external. And I just wanted to put it on record that the parish council have been very, very supportive in this whole project. And both myself, Councillor Hosker and Councillor Broughton are very happy with it. And fingers crossed we'll get it over the line in the next month or so. So thank you.
All right. Councillor Lorne.
Thank you. A final observation is that we launched a photograph competition today for the whole borough. There's a prizes every month, and it's on our social media. Secondly, look out for some new events at Townley Lecture Theatre with a film club. And thirdly, there'll be some original acts hopefully being booked at Burnley Mechanics. So I hope a lot of you will enjoy some of the new culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Any more observations? Right, we are moving toward item 8, questions.
None have been received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Right, thank you, everyone. That concludes the business for tonight's meeting. Thank you and good night. Have a safe journey back home. Members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, please don't stop.